Hello there, people of the internet. Would you like to hear a cringe story? Because boy, do I have a cringe story for you guys. I was watching the news the other day. I say the other day, it was probably more like a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago at this point, maybe like 6 months by the time I actually put up this video. But it was of somebody who was somewhere, I'm assuming the state of Florida, because I live in the state of Florida. I don't know if it was actually in the state of Florida, but I was watching the news and somebody had used a high-point carbine to defend their home from an invader. And this invader was also armed, and they used a high-point carbine very effectively to be able to stop this home invasion. And I'm like, hell yeah, good for them. And I'm glad that this news article is covering a law-abiding citizen using their lawfully owned private property to be able to protect themselves from somebody who is trying to do them harm. So, whenever they were talking about it, you know what they said? Oh God, what they said makes me cringe. They said, yeah, I'm glad I had this assault rifle to be able to keep me and my family safe. And I was like, oh no, don't call a high-point carbine an assault rifle. It's not even an intermediate caliber cartridge. Now, there's going to be some people out there who yell at me in the comments for saying the term assault rifle. Assault rifle is a real term, guys. It's not assault weapon, which is a media made-up propaganda term. Assault rifle is a select-fire fighting rifle, meaning it can go from, multiple bursts or full auto to semi-auto. It just has a means of being able to select what sort of a firing capability it is going to have. That is an assault rifle, and that was a term coined by the Germans during the Second World War, whenever they made their storm rifle. So assault rifle is definitely a real term. People just get it confused with assault weapon, which is absolutely a nonsense, made-up term, and they're trying to push assault pistols now. And that is, I would consider a PCC to be an assault pistol more than an assault rifle, but I don't consider them to be either of those because assault is an action. If I were to pick up a 2x4 and assault somebody with it, it becomes an assault 2x4, but that's a topic for another time. Whenever me and a buddy were talking about this exact situation, about how this person used a PCC to be able to protect themselves, we were talking about some of the benefits of having a PCC for practicality purposes, as opposed to having some sort of rifle. If you had yourself an assault rifle, then you're better off than a vast majority of Americans, because most of your platforms that are called assault rifles here in America are actually just modern sporting rifles that are semi-automatic only and not select fire. But if you have yourself a pistol caliber carbine, especially one chambered in 9mm, then the ammunition for it is going to be very cheap and very readily available. Let me make sure this is turned on proper. If you're going to get yourself something like this and just some cheapo 115 grain ball ammo or something like that, typically you can get 2 to even 3 shots of something like this, as opposed to getting 1 shot of something in 223, 556. Not only that, but a pistol caliber carbine being a straight blowback system, you can get yourself some PCCs for not much money. This one right here, I think I picked this up for around $200 down at my local gun store. So they're very, very inexpensive. I'm not going to talk about specifically high point. If you want to get yourself whatever PCC it is that you want, and you want to spend a bunch of money on it, then by all means go ahead. If you want to, have your practical firearm being MP5, then dude, you do whatever it is that you're wanting to do. Now, normally, I'm not really a PCC guy myself. I tend to go more into old school milsurp rifles. I was out here shooting some of these earlier, and I got my 8mm Mauser. But there are some times where having a full power rifle round will actually be a hindrance on you in comparison to having a pistol caliber carbine like this right here. So obvious ones, over penetration. If you're somewhere inside of an urban area and you don't necessarily want an 8mm Mauser round going through your house, through your neighbor's house, through your neighbor's house, and nailing somebody along the way, Over-penetration with a full power rifle round will definitely be an issue, as opposed to if you use a pistol caliber cartridge, which is more than adequate to be able to handle some sort of threat that is going on, especially if it is just a person of opportunist and not a militant style person that maybe has some body armor or something like that, in which case you might need something with a little bit more power. But for the most part, especially in modern society, you're going to have people that are not armored and that are wearing black hoodies or something like that, and something like this right here will absolutely be adequate. If you are in a crowded area, then maybe full metal jackets won't be the way to go. You might want something like hollow points or maybe potentially some frangible ammunition, just to ensure that you don't get over penetration. But on top of the obvious one, these right here are also incredibly light. The ammunition is very, very light and compact if you're getting yourself some 9mm or even some 45 or 40 Smith & Wesson. The reason why I bring up the compact nature is because you can carry more ammunition on your person for the amount of size and amount of weight it is that you're going to be getting. Now, it's not going to be as powerful as rifle ammo. Of course, it is a pistol cartridge. However, if you're in an environment where the power from that pistol cartridge is going to be adequate enough to be able to resolve your situations, then by all means, you can go ahead and you can run that PCC as effectively as somebody who would be running an intermediate rifle, because the ranges would not really matter, simply because they are all going to be within the realm of the PCC. I have seen people run PCCs out to about 200 yards, and that is going to be range enough to be able to handle most of the conflicts that people are going to come across. If you need to go into something further, then an intermediate rifle would probably come in handy. Like I know here on my property, a 9mm PCC at about 600 yards over this open field probably would not be the best idea. So a full power rifle would definitely be the way for me to go. Now, on top of being lightweight, the guns are also going to be pretty gosh darn lightweight. As a matter of fact, this high point right here is probably the heaviest of the PCCs that you would come across, simply because it is a straight blowback system, and the actual bolt in this thing is what slows this thing down. But even then, this right here is still an incredibly lightweight firearm. And, I mean, it is, for what it is very, very, not necessarily compact, but very portable, simply because of its weight. Something like that, I would definitely not be able to do that with this 8mm Mauser rifle, which is significantly heavier. Whew, you know what, I got a couple of rounds for this thing too. I'm not going to hold it out. But the ammunition and the firearms tend to be lightweight, and you can get yourself some even lighter weight firearms if you decide to go that route. Now, you can get intermediate rifles like the AR platform or something like that that do tend to lend themselves to be extremely lightweight, but 5.56 is at a certain specification, so the ammunition is always going to be a certain weight, whereas 9mm is always going to be lighter than your 5.56. Well, I guess not. If you rock like some heavy 9mm, then you might have yourself some issues. But if you get yourself a 115 grain standard round, or even like some 80 grain fast moving defensive ammunition or something like that, then that's going to be a lighter weight option than your heavier 5.56 cartridges. Oh boy, that's a powerful rifle right there. And that steel is absolutely going through hell right now. Okay. Hey, you get out of there. Get out of my rifle. Go somewhere else. So, full power rifle, heavy ammo, full power, not necessarily something that you need in all of your situations if you are going to be up close and personal. Now, one thing that I really do like about these rifles is, how would I describe this? Yes, the ammunition is interchangeable with your handgun, but you get more bang for your buck if you're running your 9mm ammo out of something like this, as opposed to if you're running your 9mm ammo out of like a Glock 19 with a significantly shorter barrel. See, whenever a projectile is inside of a barrel and the pressure continues to rise because there's nowhere for that expanding gas to go other than pushing that projectile forward, the velocity of that projectile is going to increase significantly more than the velocity out of a short barrel, because that gas will have pushed the round out of the barrel, and the gas will just kind of expel into the atmosphere around you far sooner than it will out of a much longer barrel. So you have more ballistic capabilities out of something with a longer barrel. You get more bang for your buck whenever you have yourself a certain amount of ammunition. If you are in a situation where, let's say, all you have is your 9mm Glock and your 9mm high-point carbine, and let's say there's a hurricane that hit. As a matter of fact, that literally happened here. We had a hurricane hit, and I couldn't go anywhere here for like a month and a half. The roads were flooded, and there was just debris everywhere, and I'm out here in the middle of nowhere, and it took forever to get all that cleared out so I could make my way back to town. And I mean, just with how everything was, there was no way I was going to drive. And I was out here for a significant amount of time, all by my lonesome. And if you find yourself in a situation like that, then having something like this would probably be a pretty good idea. If you have to, one second, I have some bugs flying around me. If you have to rely on that 9mm ammunition to be able to gather stuff, be it, game or even potentially deer, I'm sure proper shot placement, you'd be able to take deer with a 9mm PCC, or even if you have a 45 PCC, or insert your choice of pistol caliber here. This right here would give you a much better velocity and much better capability out of that same exact round than your handgun. If you want to do more damage to a target and you have a finite amount of ammunition, it would make sense to get as much power out of that ammo as possible, and that's something that you're going to achieve with a longer barrel system than you would with a shorter barrel system. Not only that, but this right here, with it having 3 points of contact and a significantly longer sight radius, is going to be much more accurate than your handgun. Typically a handgun, 100 yards is pushing a handgun in terms of accuracy, but like I said, I've seen people run PCCs out at significantly farther ranges than that, up to about 200 yards, and they do it very effectively. And the beauty about PCCs, well, there's a lot of people in the US that have AR intermediate caliber cartridges, AR intermediate caliber rifles like, 223, 5.56 and whatnot. There's a lot of people out there that have that, but there's a lot more people out there who have 9mm defensive handguns. I know of a significant amount of people, just myself, who are armed with handguns chambered in 9mm as opposed to a full-length rifle, simply because they're not necessarily gun people and the handgun is all that they need. They're not hunters, they're not defenders, they're not preppers, they're not anything like that. So coming across 9mm equipment is definitely going to be much easier to do than even 223, 5.56, which is also incredibly predominant here in the US. So that is another major perk of having yourself a PCC for practical situations. So I think I've already made a video very similar to this before, but I wanted to go ahead and touch up on a couple of things. PCCs definitely have some benefits, but they also have some downsides. If you have somebody, like I said, living in an area like I'm living in, if somebody had a 30-06 on that side of my field and I had a 9mm, they would have the upper hand by a significant margin, and I would be in a lot of trouble. So you got to pay attention to things like that. However, if I was, like I said before, in an urban environment, if I was in the cities, if I was just looking to protect myself in a house-to-house environment and not looking for over-penetration, then a PCC would probably be a pretty good way to go. And it's not a bad survival rifle either, because it's definitely capable at taking care of most of the things. I would not go, up against a bear with a 9mm high point. I wouldn't want to go up against a bear with anything less than a M1 Garand semi-automatic in 30-06 with an updated gas system and 260 grain projectiles going at that bastard. I just wouldn't want to go up against a bear anyway. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share, description below. Link to all sorts of stuff. Go and go check that out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I'll see you all in the next episode.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Gary. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.